Coffee and conversation, where you get your information. Whether local, regional, or international, coffee and conversation. Coffee and conversation. Coffee and conversation.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee and Conversation.
Good morning.
We're back on Coffee and Conversation with our first interview of the day, and Joe Abbin is sitting here in the studio, and we're having a nice visit. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Larry.
You're a big-time author now.
Oh, actually, I've done 5 books over time.
Have you?
And, this is the first one on this kind of thing, on law enforcement, public safety. But I did, I'm an automotive guy by hobby, and I've done 3 books on that, and one on coin collecting. And when I was at Sandia, I did maybe 100 papers. And things.
Well, let's, first of all, your background. Sandia retiree, you're there 30 years, right?
I was there 30 years, and I've been away from there for 25 years. It's
incredible.
It's hard to believe. Time flies, as we were talking about earlier.
You've been a reserve officer with APD since 1983.
Right. I started at age 42 when most of my classmates that were in law enforcement were retiring.
Nothing stops you, Joe. All right. Well, the book is out, and it's called ABQ Blues. And I like the way you frame this. ABQ Blues, what's the problem? Why blues? The answer is crime and lots of it. And is this why you wrote the book?
It is. It is, Larry. I've lived here. I was born here, and even though I've been other places.
Oh, you're a native.
I am a native.
Wow.
My grandparents came here in the teens and the 20s.
How about that?
One grandmother had asthma, and the other had arthritis, and so this was considered to be a good place. But I've been a lot of other places with Sandia, and I've watched I've always been a student of crime and been interested in policing. And in 1983, I didn't even realize that the Albuquerque Police Department had a reserve unit, and that there was eight officers actually worked for Sandia, and so I signed up, went through the academy, and I've been at it ever since. I really didn't start out to be here 35 years, but time flies, as you know.
It does. So you sat down and wrote the book because you saw a problem and you're trying to address it. I think what you're saying here in the synopsis of the book, you say, how bad is it? Referring to crime, we are top 10 in all crime categories.
All major crime categories. In 2017, which is the last year which there's the FBI uniform crime statistics, we are number 1 in property crime and number 3 in violent crime, and we're second only to Memphis and Detroit in violent crime. We're worse than Chicago, which people have a hard time believing.
Well, Chicago's a mess. Are we a mess too?
We are a mess.
Yeah.
We are a mess. And it's interesting, historically, I've had a lot of help from the Albuquerque Public Library. Terry Boatman there has done a lot of research for me. But New Mexico has been in the top 20 in crime in the United States for the last 56 years, and we've been in the top 10 for 22 years, and in the top 3 for the last 5 years. In Albuquerque, we're at the top of that. We're twice, roughly, the crime rate of the state as a whole.
So, as I talk to the police, and you talk to them as well, there's a certain number of bad guys that make crime their full-time job.
Correct.
And they know all the bad guys. And they keep arresting them over and over and over and over again. And the old revolving door down at the courthouse seems to be a very real thing.
It's a very real thing, and it doesn't work either for public safety, that's for sure. The evidence that it doesn't work is we have over 110,000 outstanding warrants for arrest, most of those for failure to appear. So they're arrested, they're released, and they never come back. We have to arrest them again. We have a lot of them are released on their own recognizance, some of them with ankle bracelets, they call them. In 2017, we're missing 1,000 of those bracelets. And
Wait a minute, the criminals don't keep them on?
it's a shock.
They said they would.
Yeah, and these are expensive bracelets. They're like $1,000 a piece because they're various sophistication, virtual fence, GPS built in. And if you want to see what one looks like, just go over the 5th and Roman. They're in the street. They don't even bother to wait till they get on the bus.
They just take them right off.
Just take them right off. And some of the criminals go ahead and just commit crimes while their bracelet's on. I mean, it's incredible.
Okay.
So there's why we have the blues. We have a lot of crime. And why do we have a lot of crime? We have a lot of criminals on the street.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with them.
Various people, some people don't believe in locking them up, though.
That's correct. And there's
And why? I don't understand that.
well, I
Are they
see
trying to be compassionate or something? Or?
Yes, they are. And there's a school of thought that says, look, we don't want to warehouse people. We're preventing them from having a good job, taking care of their families, and being law-abiding citizens, go to church, do all those things. Well,
That's not what they do, though.
but it turns out repeat offenders are, guess what? Repeat offenders. They keep doing the same thing they've always done.
This is their job.
This is their job.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in fact, I remember one burglar that I was that arrested, and he says, well, today you got me. He says, you go to work at 8, I go to work at 8. And seriously, a lot of the crime is, of course, broad daylight.
Yeah.
And repeat offenders, rehab has been poor. Recidivism's huge. It's 60 to 90%, depending on who you ask and what crime it is. But for first offenders, diversion programs have been fairly effective. A lot of them will shape up. For the repeat offenders, they keep doing what they've always done, what they know best.
Yeah. This is what they do.
And it seems elementary, sophomoric, but for some reason, a lot of people just reject it. And it seems to be a generational thing. We've had the same thing happen in Albuquerque for us, 1965, 1995, and 2005. Crime gets out of control. We crack down.
Yeah.
Then crime goes down. Then we say, hey, why are we spending all this money on cops and jail? There's nothing happening. And so we reverse. It just is a repeating pattern that you'd think we'd learn from.
I don't want to give away the ending of your book, but
Don't worry about it, Larry.
What's the answer?
Well, for starters, we need to deal with all crime. We've been ordered not to arrest on most offenses, prostitution, larceny, all that, and issue tickets. Well, that doesn't make a very big impression on first offenders, and it certainly makes zero impression on repeat offenders. So start off, we need to arresting more, we need to prosecute more, and we need to incarcerate more. That's just all there is to it. There's all kinds of estimates of what percentage of the public are criminals, and they go around 1% or so. Well, we've incarcerated about 0.2%, so it's not mass incarceration. So we got to start dealing with crime, and there's a lot we can do. And the book goes through the different legs of the criminal justice system: policing, the judicial system, the legislative system. The legislators got to be aware. It's important who we vote for, judges and legislators.
Yeah, it is. It really is. We don't want the criminals in charge of the city. We've got to change the whole priority system here.
We do. Government's first job is to protect the public, and police's first job is to enforce the law. We're called upon to do a lot of other things, to be social workers and everything else, but numero uno is to enforce the law.
We're going to give away a couple of your books.
Absolutely.
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Our guest coordinator, Kitty Neal, is standing by the phone. And if you want a copy of Joe's book, ABQ Blues, you can call her right now at 345-7373. We got a couple of them to give away. And I've enjoyed having you on the show.
Larry, my pleasure.
Good to meet you.
Good to see you back on the air again.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to interact again.
Let's stay on top of this, because I think this is something people want to talk about and resolve.
Absolutely. Public safety is not a partisan thing. It's important to all of us.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, you stay safe out there, okay?
Well, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
And you too.
I will. I'll do my best. Joe Abbin on the show today. Joe is the author of the book ABQ Blues, all about the crime problem in our city. We'll be back on Coffee and Conversation in just a moment.